I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, if this debate was this house prefers human interactions over AI chatbot interactions, then proposition would obviously win this debate by first speech, right? But the reality is that this is not the debate that we're debating in today, right? Their burden is to tell us why this the existence of this chatbot is inherently bad, right? I think first of all, they talk to us about how they're more likely to basically go to talk to a chatbot because human interactions are not as fun, right? We tell you this is inherently untrue, right? We tell you that if a person goes out of their way to seek comfort in character.ai, then they obviously are implicitly seeking comfort from a real life human, right? Because I think that humans inherently are social creatures. We go out of our way to try to socialize with other people, and social ostracization is one of the worst punishments that a person can get in society in status quo, right? And we think that secondly, right, they talk about this one boy that obviously committed suicide due to this character.ai, right? We tell you that this news has been sensationalized, right? And we tell you that yes, even though there are downsides to the character.ai, we tell you that every one child that dies from a problematic chatbot, right, another 100 people die every day from loneliness, from being socially ostracized, from being bullied every day because they can't have meaningful human connections and conversations, right? The problem in status quo is not that people don't want to make human connections. Obviously, we all have friends, we all interact with each other. I don't think that any of us in this room would replace all of our family and our friends for a character.ai chatbot, right? But the reality is that a lot of people simply can't do that, right? Because we tell you that relationships and meaningful relationships in that fact are oftentimes privilege over right. We tell you that first of all, there is an active loneliness epidemic that is going on in this world, right? Because we tell you that when we live in a world where so many people cannot access meaningful human interaction, we have to obviously turn to a better alternative, right? And we tell you that this is better than having nothing. Why, right? Because why are people even living in loneliness anyway, right? Why is there a phenomenon of having a loneliness epidemic in this today's society, right? We tell you this exists. Why, right? We think that first of all, it happens because of urbanization. As people go out to the cities and work, right, they obviously leave their parents at home, right? Meaning that both parties are often left very lonely, right? They're often left without anybody to interact with. You often lose that meaningful connection with your parents, right? And oftentimes, again, right, people can't form relationships with other people because they're simply too busy, right? And the fact that the majority of people in urban areas are middle class, right? They live paycheck to paycheck. I don't see necessarily how you have the time to now go out every time with your friends and form these meaningful connections and relationships, right? Especially if you look at the perspective of a factory worker, right, who has to work overtime just to sustain themselves, right? The fact that society and generally how capitalism works basically promotes you to work harder, right? Which is inherently against having meaningful relationships, right? These things are inversely proportional, right? So we tell you that what are the impacts of this, right? We tell you that first of all, now people more than ever are doom scrolling, right? We tell you that the rates of people going on their phones, relying on social media for comfort, right, is ever increasing, right? I think this exists with everybody, right? Because I think because you don't have these meaningful human interactions, the best second option is to go to Instagram, to go to TikTok, right? But over time, this drains your mental health, and this leads to oftentimes declining mental health, often rates of depression, right? We tell you that depression from loneliness is very, very real, people. People actually can commit suicide due to this, right? We tell you this it manifests how, right? How do these impacts even manifest in the first place, right? We tell you that first of all, we already told you how thousands of people die per year from suicide due to loneliness factors, right? The fact that they're separated from their parents, right? And not even if we're not just talking about the people who live in urban areas, but if we focus our shift to a lot of old people and elderly people who live in rural areas who can't have meaningful connections with people because they simply they live alone and their kids went out to the city to work, right? Whatever. But this is basically what will happen, and this is a real problem that exists in status quo, right? So we tell you why this happens. We tell you this happens because humans are inherently like social creatures. I think that's just how our biology works, right? And if we don't have meaningful connections, we become sad, right? That's why breakups no thank you. That's why breakups hurt so much, right? That's why when you lose touch with a friend or you have an argument with your friend, it inherently hurts, right? And being bullied by somebody is probably the one of the worst experiences that you can possibly have, right? Because now you don't have like your quote unquote like fellow primates to help you with whatever happens in your life, right? And we tell you this leads to very negative like mental health impacts. So why do we think that the rise of like these character AIs are just like the existence of it is like already good enough for so many of these people, right? We tell you that people can find comfort in these like generative like AI, like character AI, whatever, right? Because number one, right, even if they can't have access to meaningful relationships, now they can actually simulate that kind of relationship, right? We tell you that this works because it emulates what a real life relationship will be like, right? I think they went on their speech about how you can't get like that human touch, right? We think that like even though you don't get that human touch, right, we say that it's still better than doom scrolling on Instagram every single day because you don't have a partner to live with you, right? Because you don't have a child or you don't have any friends, right? Because that is actually, having no friends is a reality for many people, right? And we tell you secondly, right, we tell you that this improves people's mental health as a whole. This relates to my first speaker's argument about how this impacts those who suffer from mental health issues, right? We tell you that even though AI therapists may not be as good, they may not be the most like qualified people, right? We tell you oftentimes for most people who can't afford to access real life human therapists, right, then this is like 10,000 times better than just living alone with your depression and hoping that it goes away one day, right? Because either number one, humans are going to inherently be more expensive. I think that's just how economy and labor works, right? Because being a therapist is such a coveted thing, right? And therapists are rare. They often cost like over 400 ringgit per hour, which is something that most people can't afford, right? Meaning that they often fail to get professional mental health help, right? And the rise of obviously mental health awareness obviously proves to us how important this is in status quo, right? We think that secondly, right, we think that this technology will improve over time. We don't think that it's necessarily that has to be something so bad, because I think the fact that AI learns from its conversations day to day, right? The more interactions it has, the better it becomes, right? Thus it becomes easier to emulate and easier and better to emulate real life human to human interactions, right? We think that at the end of the day, right, I think you achieve that level of human interaction. We think that you still achieve that level of having somebody you can reside in, somebody you can trust, and somebody you can talk to at the end of the day, right? This is something that proposition can't get. With that, opposed. Thank you.